I even said to my friend at work the other day, I've got this podcast coming up with this lady, and it's about menopause, and oh my God, we're hitting that. Like, we actually have to start talking about this. And she goes, oh my God, I know. And I was like, oh, thank God you want to talk about it. I was like, I'm terrified.
And I was in a meeting one time where I got a horrible hot flash, and I'm sweat is beating up across the top of my lip, and I'm getting very embarrassed.
It is such a taboo topic, talking about, hormones and periods and the change of life and things like that for women.
And I don't want to go out in public and realize I have a mustache and not know it.
Hey, I'm Beck, dermal therapist, makeup artist, and host of Your Glow Code, the podcast where we talk all things skin, health, confidence, and living your glowiest life. Hit that subscribe button and give us a like, and leave us a comment below. It helps more than you know. And now for today's episode. Hello and welcome back to Skinfully You, everyone. Today we're talking with the incredible Peach Grayson, the author of Let's Talk Menopause, You're Not Crazy, an incredibly inspiring and hilarious book that makes any woman who is heading towards the change, has been through the change, and doesn't know what to expect, not feel so alone. Welcome, Peach.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So before we get into sort of talking about menopause, can you tell us a little bit of how the book came to be? Obviously, it's a set of stories that are hilarious and inspiring. So if you could just give us a little bit of a chat about how it came about.
Well, honestly, I was looking for a book myself. So I realized probably 4 or 5 years ago that I had probably been in a perimenopausal state for maybe 4 or 5 years. But of course, at the time, I didn't really know. But then when it dawned on me and I realized what was happening, I started looking for information out there. I went online. I went to every book I could find, anything I could get my hands on. But I couldn't find a book that I enjoyed. It was all very medical and very dry. And I just never could find anything that I found enjoyable to read that gave me the information in kind of a fun format. So I figured, well, if there's nothing out there, then I'm just going to write it myself.
That's fantastic. It is truly needed. And I myself am probably heading towards the perimenopausal stage in the next few years. And it's such a taboo topic, but it's all very medical and all of this stuff. But every now and then someone drops a little bit of information. You go, what are you talking about? And then it's gone. So even for myself to read your book was enlightening and refreshing and kind of terrifyingly gave me an idea of what might be coming. Could you tell us maybe one of your, I was trying to pick myself one of the favorite stories in there, but maybe you could give us a little bit of a rundown of a snippet of one of your favorite stories within the book to give us an idea of what you have written about.
So I think my favorite story in the book is really, I think it's called Doggy Debacle, and she's in the park. Maggio's in the park, and she's, trying to relax, trying to find a little clear headspace, and runs across a man and his dog, his, ginormous, obnoxious dog. And over the course of their little bit of conversation, he says to her that her BSC level is high. And this is the first time that she's ever heard this term BSC. And of course, then it piques her interest and annoys her at the same time. And he proceeds to explain that it's his version of Batshit crazy. And he believes that there's a level of BSC to every woman. And that, honestly, you have to find the woman that you can handle her BSC level. And I love this part of the book. It transitions into the next book. But I think that we all have to admit that as women, we are a little all crazy to some extent, some more than others. You hear about these women that are 20 years old and jumping on the hood of cars. And I mean, just insane, crazy things. And then we kind of seem to mellow out, and then menopause hits and we all kind of go off the deep end again. And, nowadays we talk about this, not much, but we're starting to talk about it. 75, 100 years ago, I mean, they locked women up for this kind of behavior, not really understanding what was happening. And so I really like the idea that, yeah, you know what, we're all a little crazy and that's okay.
That is okay. Absolutely. I think crazy is what makes us unique. And it is a crazy time. Hormones, I mean, we experience them for such a young age. So I think it's
Yes.
not just a menopausal thing. I think as women, the minute we hit puberty, and for men too, we all have these varying degrees of crazy. And as you hit your period and you suddenly realize you've been crying because the sun rose and it's beautiful, it's because you're getting your period.
Yes.
um, so I can only imagine myself at the moment how heading towards that change or being in the midst of it, that your crazy levels probably go a little off the radar. And for you yourself, when you started to realize that you were perimenopausal and going through this, did it help you understand yourself a little better and how to manage it and learn to live within your own skin within this change of life? How did you combat these sort of changes and sort of start to be nicer to yourself to cope and become okay with your crazy?
I think the biggest thing is understanding. Once you start to read and understand what's happening to your body and your mind, then you start to realize that this is all very natural. I can remember, as a young girl, as a kid, thinking, my aunts and my grandmother, that they couldn't remember anybody's name. My grandmother would go through every grandchild before she ever got to my name. And of course, I made fun of her, thought that was the funniest thing. And now I find myself in this bit of brain fog where I'm trying to figure out, who it is that I'm talking to. And I ramble through all of the children's names halfway through the grandkids before I come to the right name. And so I put myself in the same shoes, going, oh, now I get it. But really just learning about what was happening helped me understand and kind of gave myself permission that, what, it's okay. It's okay that you're not feeling right. It's okay that you feel a little crazy and you have anger and you have rage. And then all of a sudden you have all these sad emotions and then you're crying and then you feel like you're the happiest person around. And then all of a sudden you're hot and you're cold and then you're hot and you're cold. And I was in a meeting one time where I got a horrible hot flash and, I'm sweat is beating up across the top of my lip and I'm getting very embarrassed because I'm with primarily they're men and they don't have any clue what's happening. There's another woman that's older than me in the group and I know she knows exactly what's happening, but I'm outnumbered. And so the embarrassment really hit me hard. And I had to sit down and go, this is okay. This is a physical, natural part of aging. As much as we don't like it, it's something that we just have to find ways to cope with. And I was never really interested in hormone replacement therapy. I really don't want to take medicine for anything. And if I could get rid of every bit of medicine, I would. I just never take anything. Unfortunately, sometimes, there's certain conditions that you don't get the choice. But with menopause, for me, it was a choice. And I found lots of homeopathic things and lifestyle changes that made a really big difference in my menopausal journey.
Amazing. I really love that. I think, especially today, we do have obviously medicinal routes to go down, but we have so many other avenues. What were some of your lifestyle changes and avenues that you found really helped you to cope with this menopause?
Lifestyle changes is probably not what people want to hear because honestly, stopping alcohol was huge. I mean, alcohol was a really big trigger for hot flashes and night sweats. And refined sugar. Refined sugar, it was a weakness within myself that I swear I battle with every single day of my life. Once I was able to really cut out refined sugar, I still eat fruits and things that naturally have sugar, but buying a 5-pound bag of sugar, I do because every now and then I will bake, but generally speaking, I don't really eat the refined sugars. And boy, it made such a difference. The hot flashes and the night sweats were really difficult, but I had a lot of joint pain. And once I cut out sugar, boy, all of a sudden my joints were moving and I felt like I could, go from sitting to standing pain free. And there for a couple of years, I had really significant joint pain, and I'd seen a rheumatologist, I'd seen, all these doctors, and nothing really made a difference. And once I made that link between sugar, boy, it was night and day for me. That and sleeping, having a difficult time falling asleep and staying asleep. And just those two lifestyle changes really made a big difference. Homeopathic wise, magnesium was kind of my blessing. Magnesium really made my sleep where I could actually get a good night's sleep. And once I could get a good night's sleep, then I was better able to tolerate the next day, because otherwise I was just so tired and fatigued and grumpy that it just ruined the day. Then the night came along and I would have another hard night. And it was this vicious little cycle. Magnesium really made a big difference for me. Those three things, I think, were my greatest changes in my journey.
Yep. I think the irony of that too is, even for someone not going through the change, those are probably the three biggest changes that will affect somebody's health massively on a day-to-day level, even younger or older as well.
Yes.
I think they say refined sugars have the same effect on the brain as like cocaine, and it's an addiction that these days we're fed it in every single form. So, but I find that really fascinating that it not just helped with the menopause, but with the joints and everything, which goes to show that sugar and alcohol and sleep is vital.
Yes. Unfortunately, they don't do the body any good. And like you said, not just during menopause, but really throughout our lifetime. For me, I just didn't figure it out until menopause.
I think it becomes like a forced change, doesn't it? Something has to happen for you to change things. It's just human nature. We like to, we just plod along and something comes and goes, whack. Okay, now you actually have to make changes.
Yes, because before I could manage, I didn't have any signs and symptoms that were so horrific that I was willing to give up my sweets.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, like you said, something forces me to come face to face with it. And it's like, you want to eat your sweets or do you want to sleep? Because these are your choices. And, at some point you get to where I want to sleep. I want to not hurt, basic things of life.
Yep, absolutely. So what were some of the initial changes when you sort of reflect back now that you, as someone who might be heading towards the perimenopausal stage, what were some of the initial changes in yourself, in your body, in your skin, in your brain that you now see as the signs of heading towards that change?
So I think when I initially realized that maybe I had been in perimenopause for several years, my biggest change was cognition. Brain fog, and just the ability to concentrate, and my mood. I was just not really I didn't feel like a happy person. And of course I attributed it to, I wasn't in a great marriage and I wasn't in a great place in my life. But I don't think when I was able to look back, I really don't think that was it, or maybe, that was contributing factor. But once I started fixing the issues with menopause, then all of those kinds of things kind of fixed themselves. So I figured, well, okay, maybe it wasn't so much my marriage or my state of mind. Maybe it was a hormone imbalance that they kind of triggered all of that and left me unable to really cope with what was happening.
Interesting. I think we like to blame external factors, but really they're just little things, and the hormones are like, no, but they can contribute if something isn't right on the outside in our lives,
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to hormones. It is just totally amplified.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you've written your first book, and I believe you're writing a series of 3.
Yes, actually, I just have the third one published last week.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations. Well, I'm going to have to read those. And I know that one of them is aimed from a male's perspective. Is that correct?
Yes, the very last one that just published last week is really, it's honestly everything I've ever wanted to say to a man that I never could bring myself to do. So I put it in a book, and then it's just out there for the world.
Oh, this is brilliant.
But it's geared towards men and really helping them understand women, and not just through menopause, but through all of our hormone changes. So it's kind of relationship more than menopause, but I really hope that it helps women or helps men understand kind of where women are coming from and how they think, and maybe why they think the way they do, and maybe why they behave the way they do. And I do think that as we get older, our BSC level kind of decreases and we kind of mellow out. And so, I'm hoping that maybe some of the younger men go, oh, there's hope. Things are going to calm down. But there's lots of advice in there for men. Like I said, it's very humorous and it's good advice, but it's in a format that I'm hoping that men will enjoy, that they'll enjoy reading, because it's set up kind of like the first book where they're diary entries and reflections, but it's about a group of neighbors that get together every Wednesday night for what they call shotgun club. Everybody, the first newbie, it's kind of a Ponzi scheme. The newbie has to bring beer so that if there's 10 people in the group, he has to bring 10 beers. The next week, if there's 15 people in the group, the newbie brings 15 beers. And so it just kind of goes on, give or take about a year, and it evaluates different relationships within that friend group. You might have the couple that's been married for 35 years, and you might have the single guy and this girl that dates 25 different men in 1 year. I mean, it's a little bit about every type of person, but it hopefully will give men a little insight to who we are. And I figure the more that they understand women, the better it is for all of us. Because I think a lot of times men are just clueless.
Yes, I would completely agree with everything you just said there. And they don't know how to manage. They don't know. I mean, they have their own set of hormones going on and things, but because it is such a taboo topic, talking about, hormones and periods and the change of life and things like that for women, we don't know. So how are they supposed to know? And they just like to bury their head in the sand and go, her crazy levels are off the radar today. I know my husband sometimes looks at me at that time when he goes, oh, here we go. I'm like, you get your period too. You just don't bleed. And he's like, what? But, I think they really have no idea. I mean, if we don't, how are they supposed to know? And I think having so much understanding as we go through that it would be game changing for a woman going through that change, because I think we all know that the slightest thing can trigger you into tears or anger or laughter or anything. So if they can help manage that, then it's going to be so much easier for us to manage our moods and our crazy and our cravings and our feelings and the embarrassment of everything all at the same time, and being able to have that open dialogue of, this is what's happening today, just like leave me be or look after me or whatever it is that you need.
Yeah, that open dialogue is really vitally important, and it's missing in a lot of relationships because it is taboo. And so for me, the more I can get the word out and have awkward conversations with complete strangers, then I hope that it will make other people have those awkward conversations with their significant other. Because if you and I can have a conversation about it, well, then you and your husband should be able to, because obviously you have a relationship where you and I don't know each other. And so if we can make it through this conversation, then hopefully other men and women out there can kind of brainstorm and communicate and really explore what's happening. Because I know for me, I've been married before, and I've been married now 14 years. And my husband is the most understanding person I've ever met. I told him, I said, I don't know how you do it. And when I was writing this book for men, I asked him, I said, what advice would you give to other men out there? I said, because we have a really great relationship, and I've had plenty of failed ones. So I figure I've got a good groundwork here. I can tell I've got a good one. And he said, well, honestly, I think my advice would be don't. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, for all the men out there, when you think you want to say something, don't. When you think you want to act a certain way, don't. He said, just zip it up and things will work themselves out. He said, I've kept my mouth shut lots of times. And I can look back and think of all kinds of arguments where, I would say something and his reply would be, I can see how that made you feel that way. And I'm like, what? That's not how you argue. Yell at me, call me a name. It's like, it was so bizarre to me. And so now that I've hit a kind of post-menopausal phase, we've really had to have some very difficult conversations. And I told him about 2 years ago, I said, I never really thought I'd have to say this to the man that I love, but if you start to see black chin hairs, you have to tell me, because now I can't see them myself. And I don't want to go out in public and realize I have a mustache and not know it. And he looks at me, and I know he wanted to say something, but he just shook his head and said, okay. I and it's hard. It's like, I want him to think I'm beautiful and I'm sexy, and I don't feel that way a lot anymore. And now I'm having to tell him, hey, tell me when I've got chin hairs growing out, or if I've got whiskers, you have to bring it to my attention. And they're just really awkward conversations. And even when they're with somebody you love, they're still awkward.
Yeah, completely. Especially when you, as a woman, if you're not feeling yourself or feeling sexy and attractive, and then even though you've told your partner, can you please tell me when I am actually not looking attractive, it just amplifies that. But you need that trust, because you don't want to go out with that. Like, we wouldn't let them go out with certain things, that happen to men. So it does have to work both ways. Definitely. It is communication. And I really love that you have that. And I love that you're spreading this open message between men and women and having these conversations, because communication is key in life in general and any single relationship, but particularly as we go through that. Now that you're sort of in that post-menopausal phase, how is that different to the perimenopausal stage? Is it different? How is it different? And how are you feeling coming to that side of the menopause journey?
I think it's really very different than the perimenopause. In perimenopause, the hormones go up, down, up, down, up, down. So everything you experience is so intense for a month, and then almost feels like it goes away for a month, and then it comes back, and the intensity changes. And so it's constantly fluctuating. So during those 5 to 7 years, I just never felt like I really got a handle on anything, because about the time I think I would figure something out about my hot flashes, they go away. And I think, oh yeah, I've done something right. I've got it all figured out. And then a month or two later, then they come back, and it's like, what the heck? This is not the way it's supposed to go. Now that I have hit a postmenopausal phase, everything is kind of stabilized, and you definitely can relax a little bit more, because there's just not such the highs and lows. The hot flashes are still there, and I'm not sure, maybe they'll go away, but I think I'm going on about 10 years where I still have hot flashes, but the intensity is very mild and the duration is very mild. Like, when I wake up in the morning, oddly enough, the moment I wake up, I know within 5 minutes I'm going to have a hot flash, but it also only lasts about 4 or 5 minutes. So I lay in bed and I just wait, and all of a sudden I can feel this rush of heat come. Give it 5 minutes, it goes away, and then I get up and start my day. So now that I'm postmenopausal, it's just a little more stable, a little more predictable, so I can manage it a little bit better.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's nice to know that there is a little bit of light there at the end of the tunnel.
There is light. There definitely is light. But I also think that there's change. I think some women have the idea that they're going to get over this. And there really isn't anything to get over. Once we start losing our estrogen and our progesterone, you don't get it back. And even if you decide to take a hormone replacement therapy, you get it back in small amounts. You're never going to have the hormones that you had when you were 25 years old. So you have to learn to live with who we are post 50 years old versus who we were when we were 30 years old, because we're truly very different women. I think even the cognition for me is, I don't know if that's ever going to come back, because I still have a lot of brain fog, and I've just kind of found ways to deal with it and cope with it, because I know that it's expected. And when I can't bring a word to my mouth, I literally find a synonym. It's that whole joke, when you can't spell a word, you find a synonym you can't spell. Well, when you can't think of that word, then you literally just start thinking of words that make sense in the conversation. And there was, in the second book, there's a story, and I can't believe I share all this in public, but whatever. So I'm giving directions to my husband, and we're driving, and I'm trying to tell him to take the exit, go left. He's going to go across the bridge to wherever it is that we're going. And so I told him, I said, take the exit, go left, across. You go left, and you go across. The word bridge just completely escaped my brain. I couldn't come up with it for the life of me. And I told him, I said, you go left, and you take the overroad. And he looked at me and he said, the bridge? And I'm like, yes, that's the stupid word. I could not think of it. And so now it's like a running joke. He'll go, oh, did you see that overroad? They built a new overroad. And every time he says it, I just have to crack up. But it was such a frustrating moment. And now it's like, I just realized sometimes I just can't think of the word, or I will, lose my thought process. I'll be rambling about something, and then I'm thinking, I don't even know why I'm telling you this, because I can't remember what the whole point was to begin with. And I just chalk it up to menopause. And it's like, I still work, and I work with doctors quite a bit. And just a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to explain to one of my doctors that we were going to have a new protocol, and this one blood test was going to be optional. But again, I could not think of optional. So I told her, I said, this one particular blood test is going to be voluntary. And I thought, no, that's not even right. And I still could not come up with a word. I told her, I said, I'm sorry, I'm menopausal, and you know what I'm saying. And she looked at me and she goes, I get it. I completely get it. And it was just this understanding of, I'm not going to get the word out, and you're just going to have to figure out what I'm saying. You kind of have to learn a new language.
Yeah, it sounds like it. But also, I think that understanding between women and just being like, please just don't judge me, because you're there, you're about to be there, or you've been there. It's just like, just help me.
Yes. Or let me off the hook.
Or let me off the hook. Exactly. Because there's nothing you can do about that. And so, yeah. Okay. All of these things to look forward to.
Good times. But in the end, Aunt Flo doesn't come anymore. So there's some goodness there.
Well, that's so true. God, that'll be one beautiful thing, I think. So as you're on this side, I mean, you've even just looking at you and talking to you, feel very much like you are very comfortable now in your skin and as who you are. And maybe that's come through the writing of these books and being so open about it. But how have you managed to become so comfortable in your skin now in this phase of your journey, and understanding that you aren't the woman you were at 30 or 20 or even, 40? How do you come to this comfort level?
Oddly enough, I'm really a very introverted person. I don't engage much with the public when I'm out and about. I don't make eye contact with people. So I don't really communicate with strangers very often at all. So I think this is probably just out of character for me. And it was a coping mechanism of trying to figure out how to survive this phase of my life. And I started talking with some of my girlfriends. I lost my mom when I was 18. So I never really had a mother to run these things by. And I don't know that we would have even talked about it anyways, because we didn't even talk about, becoming a woman to begin with. So I don't think we were going to be talking about becoming an older woman. But I started talking to girlfriends, and people would be the same way. They're like, I'm not real comfortable with this. And it's like, but I need to talk about this because something is wrong with my brain, something is wrong with my body, and I need to know what the heck is going on. And the more I started talking about it, the more I found people saying, I really appreciate this conversation. I wish I could have had conversations like this with my own mom or my other friends or whoever it might be. And a lot of women started saying, thank you. Thank you for just sharing. Thank you for being open and honest, because I kind of realized that, I'm okay and I can get through this. And the more I had women saying thank you, the more I realized this is what I need actually to be able to be okay with me. And helping other women be okay with who they were really gave me a sense of purpose. And going through all of menopause was pretty horrific. And you start to question your own sanity, and my brain doesn't work the way it used to, and I don't feel like I'm as smart as I used to be. But going through this and hearing other women say thanks, I I appreciate the conversation, and it was genuine, and it kind of made me realize, all right, this is who I am, and I'm okay. And actually, I think I might be better because I've been able to have these conversations, because it just makes it easier for me. Because if I can have a conversation with a friend, then all of a sudden now I have a better idea of maybe what I need to tell my husband, and as you hit postmenopausal and your hormones have just kind of depleted, it's like we don't have a lot of lubrication and elasticity. The skin starts sagging, the skin gets drier than heck. You look like a lizard sometimes. And so all these things just made me realize all those things I needed to be able to talk to people about, whether it's friends, loved ones, my sister, whoever it might be. More conversations I had, seems like the happier everybody was. So it really helped me. Maybe it was a little selfish because I had all these conversations to help myself. I think in turn it helped other women too. But generally speaking, I was trying to figure out my own problems and my own issues. And in turn, I think we kind of all helped each other.
And it gave you a sense of purpose, which is incredible. But even, I think that's the beautiful thing, if even it's not a selfish thing trying to understand yourself. And I think that that's a really important thing to note for anybody, because we're all going through the same thing. At some point, what you are feeling, whether it's hormonal or menopausal or a relationship problem or a loss of someone or anything in life, you're actually not the only person who's trying to navigate that or has tried to navigate that. And trying to understand yourself better betters your relationships, it betters your marriage or your mum and daughter relationship, but mostly your relationship with yourself, which the better you are, the better you can be for other people, which I think that's something that you're obviously definitely really found in there. And I love that you've had these conversations, because even reading your book for me, I mean, I've done, I'm a dermal therapist and I understand the hormones a little bit, but I still kind of go, oh my God, what is going to happen to me? Oh, is it starting now? And I even said to my friend at work the other day, I've got this podcast coming up with this lady and it's about menopause, and oh my God, we're hitting that. Like, we actually have to start talking about this. And she is, I think, a year or two younger than me. And she goes, oh my God, I know. And I was like, oh, thank God you want to talk about it. I was like, I'm terrified. And it was suddenly realizing that it's not too early to start that conversation with myself and with my peers, and that there are some women that hit it in the early 30s and some that hit it in their later 30s or even later in life, but really just kind of go, oh my God, we really have to talk about this. But I'm so glad that you have come to that comfort level, and your book is unbelievable. I am going to 100% get your other two and the male one, because I'm going to be handing that to probably every man I've ever met. Please read this. Please read this. Please read this. Because to me, that is such a big part of it. And I remember my mum, when she was going through the change, well, actually after she went through the change, and we sort of I was older in life, and a couple of things she was like, she really struggled with my father during that phase, probably because there was no communication, because you didn't talk about it. I mean, we're still only just opening this up. So, it's so amazing to be able to have this conversation and to know that you can be so comfortable in yourself at that other end. The only other thing I wanted to talk about too was obviously the changes in the skin as well. And obviously we go dry, we lose our elasticity, we get dry downstairs and it changes, that whole thing. Yes. Have you any advice for women going through that?
I think my advice is,
and I know it's it's a taboo subject, but we're here.
It is, but it's something that I think we do need to talk about, because everything does get dry, and unfortunately, it's not. We're not going to go back and be 25 years old again. And so, if there are artificial supplements, then use them, because ultimately, comfort matters. And at some point, it actually becomes painful, and then when it becomes painful, women withdraw. Then when you withdraw, then you have a whole series of other issues. And so as long as mentally you're still interested in engaging in sexual activity, then I think artificial lubrication is honestly necessary, even when people think, oh no, I can't ever do that. And it's like, well, you really need to consider it, because if you don't, it just, it hurts. And once it hurts, then it's not enjoyable. And I mean, I want to be able to be 80 years old and I still want to enjoy sex. At least I think I do. I don't know, maybe when I'm 80 I won't, but for now my brain says, yeah, if I can be 80 and still enjoy it, then I'm going to. And if it means I have to go to Walgreens and pick up a bottle of something, then that's what I'm going to do. And then with the skin, man, the skin gets just as dry, and it's a daily thing. And for me, I've really had to work on using like a facial moisturizer, because I didn't put anything on my skin. I didn't put lotion. I didn't use moisturizer. I don't wear makeup or anything like that. But I washed my face with water every time I showered, but I didn't scrub it up. I just never did. So this part of life, it's like, well, that option is long gone, because I'm not putting a moisturizer on my face. My skin changed in really drastic ways. And it was like, all of a sudden, this down here, I don't know, it was like lizard scales. I mean, I could flake off chunks of my skin. So I had to learn to use a daily moisturizer. And it's something that I've had to, I put a timer on my phone to remind me every day to put it on my face, because it just wasn't a habit I got used to. Same thing with regular, just like body lotion, and trying to find exfoliating soaps and things. I like to use goat milk soap. That was just me. So I found some that had some essential oils and things that would just help lubricate my skin, because good heavens, I mean, I looked like a ghost, and then I looked like a scaly ghost. So it's been a struggle. And I really do think that my skin is probably forever changed. I don't know that it's ever going to go back. But you just kind of chalk it up. You learn what you got to do and move forward.
Yeah, well, when you lose all those hormones and things in your skin and the elasticity and the collagen, it does change. And it's not going to go back to the way it was, but learning to adapt to those changes is so important.
Yeah, it was sad. It really made me sad, because I mean, I've always said I'm lazy when it comes to, my setup. I don't wear makeup. I really don't blow dry my hair. I'm just kind of a wash and go kind of girl. And I've always been that way. And now it's like, no, now I have to put on moisturizer, and I have to put lotion on my legs, or, I'm scratching my husband in the middle of the night. And it's like, yeah, it did make me sad, but I got over it.
You do, but again, it's another emotion, and it's another thing that you have to deal with and adapt to and change the way you do things. Some people do everything from a young age, and they're still going to have those changes in the skin. It's not, It is inevitable, I think. So, and I mean, as women, the way we look is a part of how we feel, and so on and so forth. So having those changes is, you do have to just figure out what's going to work for you. And if you have to put a reminder on your phone, you have to put a reminder on your phone. Otherwise,
yeah.
Sorry, Elizabeth, over there. Here you go. That's one's for you. Well, Peach, where can everybody find your books?
Right now, all 3 of the books are published on Amazon. So, and they're worldwide. I know different countries, like in New Zealand, you guys have a different website, but it's still Amazon. And so you'll find them on all of the different Amazon websites. I have a global initiative set up with Amazon, where eventually I think you'll see them in Barnes and Noble and some of the other online retailers, but I'm still learning how that works.
Hey, every day is a journey, and I love that they're out there in general. What are obviously your first book is called Let's Talk Menopause, You're Not Crazy. What are the titles of the other two books?
So the second book is called Let's Talk Menopause, Fact versus Fiction. And this is a different style of book. It's very much like a sister to sister conversation. And so it's not the journal entries and reflections. It's just really the information that I hope that women need to know, and lots of different options so that everybody has the information. Then they can make educated decisions for themselves on what they want to do. In how they want to manage their menopause. It doesn't have my sarcastic sense that goes in the first book.
It's okay.
Because I know my goal really is to reach every reader out there. And some women have no problem with sarcasm and they enjoy it. Other women are just, that's not who they are. And they just want the information. And so Fact versus Fiction is really like me having a conversation with my sister about what the heck is happening and what I can do about it. And then the third book is the one that you referenced that's really geared towards men. And it's called Let's Talk, An Understanding of Her Batshit Crazy Level.
Oh, brilliant. I love that. I absolutely love that. Amazing. So they're all on Amazon. What I will do is I will find the links for those and I'll put them all into the show notes so that anybody who listens to this can then find those books, because the more people that can read them, the better. And I am totally, and I mean this, going to be handing that last one to every man I've ever met in my life. Here you go, here you go, here you go, here you go.
If you liked the first book, you will absolutely love the third.
Yep, I can tell I already will. I loved the first book. I thought it was, for me, like I said, just for me, just to have that sort of anecdotal kind of understanding in a real world context was just, it was enlightening. Like I said, I'm a little terrified, but we're going to have the fact and fiction to go and figure out what is going on. And I know now, like, it really does help knowing I'm not alone in this, just being able to open up that conversation. And that's part of why this is on the podcast, because I think everybody should be talking about this the same as you. So here we go. We'll change the world one person at a time. Thank you so much for joining me today, Peach. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you having this conversation with me. And like you said, the more we get the word out there, then the more other people hopefully will have those conversations and maybe make their journey a little easier.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for watching this episode of Your Glow Code. If you found something helpful, please give us a thumbs up. It really helps the show grow. Don't forget to subscribe for more chats on skincare, the signs of feeling good in your skin, health, and wellness. Leave us a comment. We'd love to know your thoughts and what your favorite moment was, and give us a follow on Instagram. See you in the next one.